call this council meeting to order at 6 p.m. I need a motion for the adoption of the minutes, please.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on Monday, December 13th, 2021, and the minutes of the special meeting of council held on Wednesday, December 22nd, 2021, be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Knox. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We have one delegation this evening. Madison Connolly and Emma Enns McIver are going to present the Fort Lorraine Museum Annual Report for 2021. Welcome.
Hello there. Thank you so much for having us. Okay, there's Emma. So every year, of course, being one of our major stakeholders, the city of Portage la Prairie gets to have a glimpse at our annual report before we finalize it to the public. And we worked really hard on the annual report this past year, and like many other organizations, experienced a very strange year. But nevertheless, I believe it was rather successful in unexpected ways. I'm not sure if we're able to get the annual report on the screen. I believe that was in your hands.
Everyone just has it on their own.
Yeah, we have it in
Okay.
front of us. I think everybody on council should have it on their agenda. There we go.
Okay, perfect. So I guess before I dive in, I'll introduce myself. I'm Madison Connolly. I'm the executive director of the Fort Lorraine Museum, and I'm on for the next week or two. I'm not sure. I'm expecting. So this is also a great opportunity to introduce Emma Enns McIver, who will be the acting director for this next year, and she brings with her a wealth of knowledge and expertise, and very excited to have her on board. So this is kind of your opportunity to meet her first. Okay, so I'm just going to run really quick through our annual report. I know that I only have about 5 minutes or so. So this year was very strange. We had anticipated opening, as we regularly do, mid-May, but of course with restrictions due to the pandemic, we had to extend that opening a few times. And we finally were able to open on July 4th. And that was actually only for outdoor programs. And we carried on with our tea party tours outside. We adjusted, but it wasn't until July 17th that we could open for fully vaccinated patrons. So it took 2 months to get to that point. And we had a brief moment where we could open to everybody, but then restrictions came back again in the fall, and we had to double back once again just to have fully vaccinated patrons. And our season for our regular hours officially ended on October 17th this past year, with, of course, with a few special events that we put on seasonally. So our season, which is usually about 5 to 6 months long, was cut 2 months short. So it was a little stressful, but with that came some opportunities to adapt and bring in new digital content and work on other things like EduKits for the school division and guided virtual field trips. We had 26 classes participate in our Spanish flu exhibit field trip that we created, and that was across the province. So that was really incredible to see. And when we were finally able to open, we were allowed to bring back our signature events for the summer, like our tea party tours, which were super successful and sold out pretty much immediately, which was wonderful to see, as well as our Prairie Sundays family activities once a week. So those worked out really well. In addition, we really refocused on digital programming. So we collaborated with a lot of different community organizations to bring free DIY videos and workshops and guided tours and even panel discussions. So we were able to extend our audience in a digital way this year, which we'd never had the opportunity to really before. So it was wonderful. So on the annual report, I do outline some of our visitor statistics for this past year. Last year was incredible. We had our first year of our corn maze, and that brought in 6,000 people last year. So most of our visitors last year were for outdoor programs. And this year we did see obviously a dip in our visitation because of the lack of being open for the 2 months. But nevertheless, we still saw about 6,500 people come to the museum this year, which is right on par with what we had hoped for our strategic planning. It's great. And we also continued our demographic research. So we like to know where our visitors are coming from. And about 4 years ago, we noted that most of our visitors were not coming from Portage. We weren't really seeing that local participation that we were hoping for, but that has really changed. And I think COVID has really helped with that in some respects, because now Portage and rural Manitobans make up about 60% of our regular visitors, which is incredible. And grants and funding, we did very well this year with that as well. We, of course, rely heavily on city funding and RM funding, but we also get some provincial funding and federal funding for hiring summer students and just ongoing operations. And in addition, we were very, very fortunate to reach our fundraising goal for the Fort Restoration Project Phase 1. That's a 3-year project in the making. So this year was really amazing for all the generosity from local businesses, individuals and families, and also through micro grants and specialty infrastructure grants. So we were able to reach $140,000 this year, and partly of last year too, from our own savings, as well as all of these incredible contributions. So we can look forward to this spring is our tentative breaking ground for that part of the project. So we're gonna hopefully, and it's in the plans, to restore those 2 bastion towers that have been disintegrating the last few years. So the goal is, in the next phase, is to reincorporate those spaces to become exhibits for showcasing Indigenous worldviews and histories, using those collaborative efforts in order to create new and exciting exhibits for locals and for visitors. So that'll be really exciting, the next step. We were able to get a few special project funds as well for digital programs and for hosting traveling exhibits. So this year we hosted 3 traveling exhibits. The first one, which coincidentally was on the Spanish flu, that was booked before COVID, I promise. And it was very, very successful. We saw a lot of families and repeat visitors come in to see that. So that 100-year-old history was really important and comparable this year. So that worked out really well. And even though we had it up, like I mentioned a bit earlier, we had virtual field trips showcasing that. So that was really great. In the fall, we had 2 exhibits on from the Language Museum of Canada, one on Indigenous dictionaries and languages, and the other on traditional Canadian slang. So those were really fun, and we partnered with National Indigenous Peoples Day as well as National Day for Reconciliation to highlight the Indigenous language exhibit. So that was really cool too. Yes, the rest are outlined in our outline for the annual report. Yeah, so this year for education, like I'd mentioned, we really adapted to incorporate more virtual and digital experiences for our visitors, and we saw a lot of participation in that, which was really great. We created lots of edukits and just virtual tours and behind the scenes tours and DIY videos. And those are all on our YouTube channel. So we're constantly getting new subscribers and viewers for those, which is great. Heritage preservation. So we did slow down a little bit on doing more, I guess, external paint jobs and things like that for our heritage buildings, because a lot of them have already been done the last few years. And this year we really focused on reorganizing our storage for artifacts, as well as on just organizing funds for the heritage, for the Fort Restoration Project. So that's where our heritage preservation efforts went this year. And for tourism, we really partnered really well with Central Manitoba Tourism, with Travel Manitoba Tourism, as well as play a key role as part of the Portage Regional Tourism Committee. So I and then Emma will now sit as the representative for Heritage and History on that committee. And that's really great to encourage tourism to our area and build up that economic development. And finally, our last pillar is community. And that was another focus that we really wanted to pursue this year. So we partnered with ROC, with the Community Foundation, with Portage Learning and Literacy Center, with FLIP and PCRC and all the acronyms that I'm sure we're all tired of hearing. But we all collaborated to enhance our own signature events as well as contribute to new ones. So that's something that we hope to continue on year after year and just create more of a cohesive community. And always want to be part of that. And even though we couldn't participate in physical festivals this year, the hope is that next year, that is the goal, if we can have them. And our final page of our annual report goes into details about specific goals that we outlined for 2021. If we accomplished them, how we went about doing that, and in our strategic plan with the board, we outlined goals for 2022. And we've pretty much reached all of our goals this year despite the global pandemic. So we wanted to create more in-house permanent exhibits. We did that by creating Women in Agriculture exhibit, Women in Uniform exhibit, and also Indigenous and Métis historic timelines that are going to be up on permanent display at the museum. We wanted to increase general exposure and visitation and community outreach, which we did by partnering with other groups and by focusing on digital outreach this year. And we, of course, kept working on renovating heritage buildings and working on the fort restoration project. And for next year, the hope is to keep on the trajectory of our visitation and continue writing grants and just hoping to be the key heritage site for Portage la Prairie. And we could not do that without the support of council. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions about the details of the annual report or financials, we are here to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from council for Madison? Councillor Draycott?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to congratulate Ms. Connolly on her very effective work this year. It was a very difficult year, and I sit on the board, but she did a fabulous job with the staff that she had and what she could do, and she was constantly looking for alternatives to what we had done in the past to make sure that the museum was still a place that people could go to or to access online when that was the only option. So thank you very much. It was a difficult year again for you. You've only had difficult years at the museum, so we're looking forward to when you do come back that hopefully you can have a little bit more of a normal museum year when you initially come back to us. But thank you very much for your presentation, and of course I do look forward to working with Ms. McIver as well over the next year at the museum. We look forward to what the potentials are for the 2022 season. So thank you for your presentation this evening and your hard work.
Councillor Meyer, I think you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And first of all, congratulations, Ms. McIver, on your role with the museum over the next year as well. And to Ms. Connolly, of course, as usual, the work and the effort that you've put in. We know that the museum is a jewel that we have. It's one of only 63 star attractions. I think the work and the effort that you put forward over the last year has really proven it to what it is today. So thank you for your effort and everything else on that. We look forward to exactly what it's going to bring over the next while. Enjoy your time off.
Thank you so much. I always look forward to presenting.
And any final questions from council? Well, not seeing any, I want to thank you very much for coming out and presenting to us this evening, Madison, and congratulations on a pretty successful year and a very challenging year. So we look forward to the coming year very much. Thank you for coming. Take care.
Thank you.
We have no public hearings this evening. We're going to move right into committee. First up is Finance, Legislative and Property Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you, Worship. At committee last council meeting, I did run 2 policy changes over to council for their consideration, and here we are with approvals. So the first one is our accounts payable policy, and basically we're just looking to get that updated. The finance department has reviewed and updated the accounts payable policy, and it was approved back in 2003, but now of course does need some changes. You can see it's primarily around electronic payments. So policy is there attached, and it is a recommendation of your committee, and I so move that the council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the updated accounts payable policy.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Espy. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And my next item is the local improvement charges policy. Again, just doing our due diligence here and going through the policies. It does need to be updated. This one, the current policy was approved back in 1997, and it is primarily governed by the Manitoba Municipal Act. And so that act, as we know, has not made changes in this area, and any updates to this policy reflect title changes only for our city. So purely administrative, and as such, it is a recommendation of the committee, and I so move that the council of City of Portage la Prairie approve the updated local improvement charges based on frontage flankage policy.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Espy. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And that does conclude my reports this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Buds. The City Planning and Economic Development Committee, Councillor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, you have before you, we brought it forward in a committee meeting at last council meeting, which was a request or proposal to subdivide lot 175, plan number 15 PLTO and RL 57 in the parish of Portage la Prairie. There's a map there for your consideration, and the issue, of course, was to subdivide to 2 equal lots of 2,755 square feet from the present holdings of 5,510 square feet. So the applicant, which is Paramount Investment Corporation, proposes to subdivide the 5,510 square feet into the 2 equal lots. Presently, it is zoned R2 or residential 2-family zone, but the issue is the minimum site requirement. It doesn't meet it because the requirement is 6,000 feet and 60 feet respectively. So you're requesting to subdivide it to the minimum side width, to 5,510 square feet and the minimum side width from 60 feet to 44.12. So the application is consistent with the development plan. It does meet provincial criteria for a minor subdivision. And although it enables it to be given conditional approval without requiring an interdepartmental circulation or planning report, council approval is required prior to completing other conditions in the subdivision process. Those 2 conditions, council, are written confirmation from Manitoba Hydro that an easement agreement has been entered into, or that an easement agreement has either been entered into or that it is not required. And secondly, a written confirmation from Bell NTS that a right-of-way agreement has been entered into or that an easement is not required as well. So community and regional planning have conditionally approved the subdivision based on those 2 conditions. So it's administrative recommendation, and I so move that the council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the subdivision of lot 175, plan 15 PLTO and RL 57 in the parish of Portage la Prairie, into 2 equal lots of 2,755 square feet from the present holdings of 5,510 square feet, subject to the conditions being met.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And that's the end of my report, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Community Services Committee, Councillor Graycott.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing at this moment in the meeting.
Thank you. And Waterworks Committee, Councillor Wall, please.
Your Waterworks Committee has no report this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you. Transportation Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. There is one item on the agenda for transportation. and that is to accept the Transit Feasibility Study Report. WSP Canada was contracted by the city to conduct a study on the feasibility of implementing public transit in the Portage la Prairie area. The study included a jurisdictional scan of similar Canadian communities with public transit systems, public engagement to incorporate community input, as well as travel needs assessment to provide an estimate of transit demand. 3 options were considered: a fully on-demand system, a hybrid fixed route and on-demand system, and a conventional fixed route system. Other considerations that were looked at were fare rates and types of fleet vehicles. Potential partners were also approached to determine support for extending the system outside of city limits. Potential grants funding sources were also identified. The recommendation was for the city to begin with a fully on-demand system, which would allow the addition of fixed routes over time if justified by demand. It was also recommended that the city continue discussions with potential partners. Now, before I make this motion, there are a bunch of letters of support here, and I'd like to take a few minutes just to read those. First one, in 2019, the Portage Urban Indigenous Peoples Coalition completed a survey on health, housing, education, culture, recreation, community, and transportation. In particular, the transportation category, 72% responded yes to the question if Portage la Prairie had a public transportation system, would they use the service? We further would like to advise that our coalition identified in our strategic plan the lack of public transportation was a barrier to employment in our employment and training category. More recently, based on our labor market needs assessment, Indigenous focus group, public transportation is a major barrier both within Portage and between Portage and First Nations. On behalf of the Portage Urban Indigenous Peoples Coalition, please accept this letter in support of a feasibility study of public transit in the city of Portage la Prairie. Respectfully, Cornell Pagerie. The next one coming to us from Big Brothers and Big Sisters. I am writing to add our voice to the importance of seriously looking at public transportation in our community. There is a need for public transportation. Big Brothers Big Sisters has seen this firsthand with students unable to attend programming, especially in winter, as they have no means of transportation. Our office has provided some rides. However, we have our personal cars to staff. In some programs, only one staff is present. At Coats for Kids 2021, a father came in with his 3 children bundled up as best they could to come and see about getting warmer wear. They walked from 18th Street Northwest. The children's hands were like ice. Unfortunately, we were able to outfit them with some warmer jackets, toques, and mitts. However, we only had 1 pair of boots that fit one of the kids. Had they been able to take public transportation downtown, they would have been warmer and been able to access Coats for Kids a lot easier. Public transportation would also allow students to get to school if they missed their bus or school buses are not running. We have often picked up students and brought them to school. The transportation system would make it possible for low-income families to have their kids in extracurricular sports, activities at school or outside of school, such as Republic Park. It can also be accessed by all students, families who live in the far corners of town to take part in activities downtown. If a family has a car, they do not necessarily have 2 cars, and if one person has a car to get to work, public transportation would allow the rest of the family to participate in other activities in the community, the library, shopping, etc. It is important we seriously look at solutions for this community challenge. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Don Fraze, Executive Director. Next one is from the PCRC. A reliable and affordable public transit system is crucial need in our community. As the Portage la Prairie Community Revitalization Corporation, we have the privilege of working with and serving a broad range of community members across a wide variety of direct service and community development programs. Public transportation is a topic that comes up in many working groups facilitated by our multi-sectoral programs such as LIP, CBYF, and Wowokia. It also comes up in conversations regularly with clients of our direct service programs such as Reaching Home and Ask Auntie. In 2013, PCRC published a momentum report which reviewed barriers for women to economic security in Portage la Prairie. The study found that the lack of affordable or public transportation was seen as a barrier to employment, education, and economic growth. A lack of transportation was mentioned in all focus groups conducted as part of the Momentum Project. When focus group respondents said, I cannot afford taxis or shuttles, it's not in my budget, it's almost $20 a day after daycare and work, it's not worth it. According to Southern Health Santé Sud's 2019 Community Health Assessment, the city of Portage la Prairie has grown to 15,905 residents. We have an additional 6,795 residing in the RM of Portage la Prairie, according to the 2016 census. In similarly sized community or cities such as Huntsville, Ontario, fixed route public transportation systems have been successfully operating since the early 2000s. Tillsonburg, Ontario, with a population slightly smaller than Portage la Prairie, launched an on-demand transit service in 2016, and in 2018 was able to justify demand enough to buy a second bus and launch 2 route services that are still in operation today. A transit feasibility study conducted by WSP in 2021 provided a comprehensive overview of logistical options for where, how, and when potential transit systems could operate in our community based largely on current traffic patterns. What the study was limited in providing was a perspective on social and economic benefits that the public transit system could create in Portage la Prairie. Aside from lower greenhouse gas emissions from reduced cars on the road, there are ample social benefits from public transportation. Our mandate is to work with other organizations to strengthen opportunities for community. We hear about challenges that they are facing being able to serve their clients. The Communities Building Youth Futures project coordinates multi-sectoral action groups in the 4 areas of focus: education, employment, and youth engagement, and mental health. And transportation has come up as both a barrier and an opportunity in all 4 groups. Staff have heard many stories of clients being unable to access essential services, for employees unable to access work due to a lack of transportation that is both affordable and reliable, as the existing private shuttle services provide cost and safety barriers. Finally, the economic benefits of investing in a public transportation system cannot be ignored. According to the report from Société de Transport de Montreal, presented in the Canadian House of Commons in 2012, titled Public Transportation, a Driving Force in Canada's Economy, investments in the public transportation sector have produced a cost-benefit ratio of 3-to-1. So for every dollar invested, there is a resulting economic benefit at triple the value. At the PCRC, we are urging you to consider the wide-ranging benefits of investing into public transportation would have in our community. In 2015, the PCRC published the State of Public Transportation in Portage la Prairie, a discussion paper as part of the Momentum Project, and identified 7 studies and reports published between 2009 and 2015 that identified transportation barriers and recommendations for local contexts. Today, although it has not been released yet, the updated labor market needs assessment, to be released in 2022, has had a number of our staff on the advisory committee, and transit continues to be a hot topic of conversation. This has been a need for our growing city historically and will continue to be a need going forward. For years, studies and reports that focuses on the needs of Portage la Prairie have been recommending the implementation of public transportation system for the betterment of our community. And now, as the city of possibilities, this is the time to act. Sincerely, Victoria Espy, Executive Director. The next one reads, Infinity Career and Development Consulting launched in the fall of 2018 with a mission to empower individuals in recognizing their life and work goals in order to successfully design, attain, and manage an authentic career path. At the onset of Infinity's launch, one of the goals included finding unique avenues to give back to the community of my roots, Portage la Prairie, through endeavors that foster local economic growth, career, and workforce development. Infinity has contributed to the local economic workforce and community programs, including Skills Up, Local Initiative for Transition to Work, the Portage Learning and Literacy Program, Work Experience Program, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Central Fuse, and the Family Resource Center. During my involvement in these community initiatives, I have consistently listened to feedback from participants of programming and stakeholders involved in the development and delivery of service. Transportation is a significant barrier for employment and work experience prospects, engagement and services for mental health, holistic and healthy living for wellness. Based on research, the city of Portage la Prairie and RM combined host a population of over 20,000 residents. Further transportation systems have been adopted in other cities with similar population, which have resulted in positive economic impact and community development. The endeavor to incorporate a public transportation system will benefit organizations, our community members, and city's reputation, while providing opportunity to integrate new possibility and initiatives for our community that can benefit members of our community. Thank you in advance for consideration regarding this call to action and request for additional community development measures. Sincerely, Kimberly Hollis, founder, career coach, and consultant of Infinity Career and Development Consulting. Now, the next letter is also from Kimberly Hollis. It's the Family Resource Center. The Family Resource Center's vision is to provide a support for all families in Portage la Prairie and surrounding area by bringing families together, providing a safe and welcoming place, providing meaningful and educational programming, and being a source of trusted information. Our organization has concerns for the lack of public transportation in Portage and surrounding area. The attendance of our programs has been impacted, and some of our at-risk population do not have access to our programs or counseling services due to barriers associated with transportation. With a population of over 20,000 residents in the city of Portage la Prairie and RM, there is an apparent need of public transportation system. In review, cities of the same size as Portage la Prairie have found public transportation is used, needed, and successful. Diane Peters examined the effects of public transportation on the economy of small cities in Ontario. All cities around the same size as Portage have transportation systems that benefit the city and its residents. In 2016, Community Living Tilsonburg bought a van and launched a dial-a-ride bus service that had a flexible base route. The town took it over in 2018, bought a second bus, and in August launched 2 fixed routes with 29 stops each. Already it's attracting up to 40 riders a day. With a vision to provide support to all families in our community, public transit can help attract and retain residents who do not drive, including the elderly generation, young people, people with disabilities, and lower incomes. Therefore, helping to support local business, healthcare centers, schools, access to mental health services and programs, many programs and services, including those of the Family Resource Center, located in the downtown area of Portage la Prairie, are left underutilized and not accessed by those in need due to the barriers of money, resources required to attain access. It is notable that many studies have gone into small city transit. The endeavor to incorporate public transit system will benefit our organization and community members and the city's reputation while providing opportunity to integrate new possibility and initiatives for our economy that can benefit members of our community. Thank you in advance for considering regarding this call to action and request for additional community development measures. And finally, Rock. To whom it may concern, Rock Central is writing this letter on behalf of our families that we serve, as well as many others in Portage la Prairie. Transportation has been an ongoing issue for many people in our community and surrounding area. Whether it be for work appointments or for recreation, transportation is a barrier for many, especially the low socioeconomic in our community. Rock is partnering and partnering organizations have fostered a variety of programs, and even with no cost, transportation is still a barrier. Shuttles and other types of pay-per-use services that exist in Portage are not economical for many and are also unreliable and in some instances questionable. Many issues can be alleviated by a consistent and reliable form of public transport. Many people who are wanting to get jobs inside and outside the city could use a public transportation such as a bus route that exists in Brandon, like the one that takes people to Maple Leaf. Transport during cold, harsh winter months would be possible, and even petty crimes like bike theft could be reduced in situations like opportunity crimes when bikes are stolen and dumped just to move from one area of the city to another. Personally speaking, as now a single mother of 2 living in Southport, I cannot imagine how difficult my life would be if I didn't have a car, and many families don't and statistically, the largest group of people who are living at or near poverty line in Portage la Prairie are single mothers. One thing is evident that has come up personally and professionally as a single mother in my position as ROC and as the former community facilitator at PCRC. Reliable, consistent, and affordable transportation is something that is desperately needed in the city of Portage la Prairie. That's Vienna Moyes, Executive Director of ROC. So, it is the administrative recommendation that the Council of City of Portage la Prairie accept the Transit Feasibility Study Report and authorize administration to continue consultation with potential partners, as well as identify funding sources in the 2022 budget year. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Espy and seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Budd, do you have a question?
Yeah, mine's more comments, I think. Thank you for that, Councillor Espy. We did have those letter of support. So, you know, you reading them out, I think was just highlighting, I guess, that there is some support in the community for a transit system. But the interesting part is that many of these, I think, when we look at the consultation that we went through, which I'll go on record as saying I did not support the consultation because I thought that it would come out just exactly what it did, and that was that the city currently cannot support a type of transit system that many people, when they hear public transportation, they think of buses going around our community and filling a gap or a need that there is in our community. And what we found out is that that in fact is not the case. And that the recommendation is basically taking what we have and inserting a city option into it as a pilot project and as a first step. So basically an on-demand system where people must call a city-funded, potentially or partnered organization to receive a ride. And so that is far cry from what someone might consider to be public transportation. Could it eventually morph into that? You know, the report goes on to say that maybe based on rider demand. So really what I'm seeing in front of me here is a request to use public dollars, citizens' dollars, to subsidize a system that is currently in play in Portage. Could there be improvements in our existing transit options here in town in terms of the shuttle, et cetera, et cetera? Sure, there could be, but I cannot support taxpayers' dollars to compete directly with services that are provided in the public sector already. So I will not be supporting. I support to accept the report, which was done and kind of shows what we need in our city, but not for any further development from the city's perspective in this regard.
Any further questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Knox.
Yeah, just a comment on this study that I found quite interesting, and maybe it was the way it was done, but one of the big things that we talked about was buy-in from industry that was happening around our community. And the presentation that we got when they were doing the study, that those big industry that we thought might be partners didn't have any buy-in to this. So a little bit back to the drawing board on that, maybe timing, maybe reasons we don't know about, but the fact that we do have to look at partners in this and making sure that whatever does happen or doesn't happen, that we're meeting the needs of our community for sure.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Meyer? Go ahead, Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just unmuting my mic there. But yes, I certainly want to share my same, I had to echo Councillor Budd's comments. And again, I am not in favor of just having a competing system with what we currently have within the city. I guess just for clarification, and maybe it's through the administrative, is exactly what are we voting on? Do I assume we're just voting on just accepting the report as it is? We're not voting on the recommendation of the fully on-demand system as of right now. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yes.
That's correct, Councillor Meyer.
Okay. So all we're really doing is we're just reporting just on the study report. And if we want to kind of look a little bit further, I'm not quite sure what we'll accomplish out of that, but I guess I can certainly support accepting the report, but I just want to again repeat myself, and I apologize for that, is I'm just not in favor of competing with the current business that we have imported, I guess, at this point. So that's my comments. Thank you, sir.
Not quite. Do you want me to speak?
We have a question for Councillor Buds.
Yeah, just to be clear, Preston, or sorry, Councillor Meyer, if you read the recommendation, is actually to include administration to continue to consult with potential partners to fund basically that option and look for funding sources in the 2022 budget. So that's the part where I had mentioned I'm going to accept the report, but I can't support the recommendation as it's written based on the fact that we're still having management do looking for partners and including some funding sources in 2022. Just a point of clarity, Councillor Meyer.
Councillor Draycott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess this one's hard for me because this is something that I've been talking about in the 7 years that I have been on council, and previous to that, I've been involved in lots of the consultation with other organizations over the years, and I understand that there is an extreme need in our community for some sort of transportation being offered out there. To say I was disappointed in what the results of the report were would be kind of an understatement. Not that I don't think the report was done well. I just think that, as Councillor Budd has said, that this is already being fulfilled in our community, whether that could be improved upon or partnered with the city. I'm not sure what the city can do on those respects. However, I think that in this report, and in many of the other things that we have heard from the letters that were included, it has come out that many communities start with what already exists in our community that is taken over or started by the community, by the city. And through that, they determine that there is a need for more. That becomes really difficult for us as the city of Portage la Prairie when we do have shuttles and taxi services running in the community already. It is really difficult for us to say, we're going to take that over or we're going to provide that service. But if we don't do that, how do we determine if there is more of a need than what currently exists? I think that there probably is more of a need than what currently exists, and it wouldn't be difficult if funding was available and sustainable by our community to move into the next phase of what this report is laying out for us. However, how do we as a city take over something that's already being accomplished? How do we move into a business that's already making money and thus taking that money away from the business or partnering with them? How do we get to the next part? Because I believe that the next part is what would be important to us as a community. I just don't know how to get to the next phase. That would be my issue with the report as it stands right now.
Okay, Councillor Meyer and then Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just did want to respond to Councillor Budd. That's what I was looking for, Councillor Budd. Thank you very much. I just want to be clear that I am in favor of a transportation system of some type. I'm just not in favor of the fully on-demand system. So I was just trying to be clear on exactly what the motion was up in front. So again, just to be clear, and excuse me for repeating myself, we're just voting on accepting the report. We're not accepting the report on that recommendation. Am I making myself clear? Or am I confusing the issue?
Okay, the recommendation is right in front of you.
Yeah, no, I hear it. Okay, if that's the way it is, I'm good then. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Wall, you had a question?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it's pretty obvious that if the current operators were filling the need for transportation in our communities, we wouldn't have all these letters of support from all these community groups. I think there's a big gap in there somewhere, and that we should look further and do some more work on this.
Okay. Councillor Knox.
Yeah, my comment on the motion is the second part where we talk about continuing consultation and identifying funding sources, is that I do believe that where we have opportunity to work with our current providers to enhance their services and look at some safety issues and that sort of thing. And so that's how I look at this motion, and that's what I'd be in favor of. But again, not in favor of taking on the recommendations of an on-demand service at this time.
Okay. Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will kind of echo what many of the councillors have already said. I'm not happy with the recommendation that came back, but I also want to keep the conversation open and keep this moving forward to look at other options. So definitely will be supporting the motion as it has been presented.
Further questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Buds?
Can I propose an amended resolution?
Okay,
I'd like to move that the council city of Portage la Prairie accept the transit feasibility study report.
okay. Is there a seconder for the amendment?
I will so second.
Councillor Meyer? Okay. Any questions or comments on the amendment? Councillor Espy?
My fear is if we accept this amended resolution, that this just means this report gets put on a shelf somewhere and nothing happens. There's no action steps that come with it. I think the original resolution is the one that we should move forward. And it doesn't commit us to anything. It just asks administration to continue to talk to people and look for options.
Councillor Draycott?
I agree to quote Councillor Buds on numerous occasions, I'm not a council that's interested in having reports sit on shelves.
Further questions or comments on the amendment? Okay, I'll just ask that the amendment be read back before voting.
That the council of the city of Portage la Prairie accept the transit feasibility study report.
All those in favor of the amendment? And the motion is defeated. The amendment is defeated. Okay, so call question on the original motion. I'll just have it read one more time for the record, please.
The original motion, resolved that the council of the city of Portage la Prairie accept the transit feasibility study report and authorize administration to continue consultation with potential partners, as well as identify funding sources in the 2022 budget year.
All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. And Transportation Committee, that concludes your reports.
Indeed it does, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Knox, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Public Safety Committee has nothing this evening.
Thank you. We have a number of items of deferred business. First item of, no deferred business. We have a number of items of new business. First item of new business is the November 2021 financial statements. And this is Finance Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for information for council here, and if there's any questions, we can take them, but gives you a financial picture of the balance sheet and income statement, both on the general fund and on the utility. So the first 2 pages is our general fund. An item of perceived concern might be that it looks like the actual November, well, I shouldn't say it looks like, it actually is, saying that it is somewhat in a deficit position, but you do see the timing difference note. December results and year-end entries will result in a surplus in the general fund. So this is just an accounting item, both on the utility and the general, showing that we're actually behind a zero budget, which we budget for, but that's actually not going to be the case. We are anticipating there to be a surplus on both the general and the utility side of things. Probably not as extensive as previous years, but we do plan on being ahead of budget slightly by year end here. So just an item of note for council. Any questions? And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councillor Buds. Next item of new business is first reading of City Bylaw 21, 8729. This is City Planning and Economic Development. Councillor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Of course, Council, in front of you, you do have the new documents for the new City of Portage la Prairie Building Bylaw, number 21-8729. So it is for the first reading, and of course, our alternatives are approve the new bylaw, do not approve it, or we can revise and approve it as well. So the background, of course, the Portage la Prairie Planning District did complete a comprehensive review of the existing building bylaw. It originally was a 17-page document, which was back in 1995, so it may have been a little antiquated. It was time for them to redo it. So as you can see, there's been a number of main changes that are being proposed. I won't go through them all, but the big ones are in front of you, and the document, of course, is attached for your reference. So it is the administrative recommendation, and I so move that the bylaw number 21-8729, being the building bylaw for the City of Portage la Prairie, be now given first reading.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. The next item of new business is a variation extension. This is PC 6121 for McIver at 435 Crescent Road East. And this is City Planning and Economic Development Committee. Councillor Meyer again.
Once again, thank you, Your Worship. The issue in front of you, Council, is to grant an extension to an original variation that had been approved by this Council back in January of 2021. So the issue was to vary the rear yard requirement from 7.5 meters to 1.52 meters. And there is the original drawing there for your reference. So the Planning Act does state that a variance order will expire or cease to have any effect if it's not acted upon within 12 months of the date of the decision. That has been almost there. So it says a board or a council or planning commission may extend the deadline for an additional period not longer than 12 months if the application is received before the additional deadline. And in this case, it was. So you can see the attached original variation on this matter, and administratively, there are no concerns with the application for the extension to the original variation order, and as such, they would recommend approval. With that said, it's my committee's recommendation, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the request of Ken McIver to extend the original variation order, which is PC 84-20, at the property on 435 Crescent Road East, which is legally described as Lot 6, Block 8, Plan 21-428 in the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Next up, new business is the award, the RFP for a skate park design build, and this is Community Service Committee. Councillor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this evening, we do have the ability to vote on the award for the contract at Phase 1, the design build services for skate park in Portage la Prairie. This project is part of the Central Community Hub that would be Simplot Central Park, identified in the Parks and Outdoor Recreation Framework Plan that the Parks Committee has been working to complete. This park is located on 3rd Street Northwest between 4th and 5th Avenues. An RFP was posted on Merrick's and advertised on the City of Portage la Prairie website. 3 proposals were received. The proposals were rated with 90 points based on the proposal and 10 points based on price for a total possible 100 points. The proponents were given the project budget of $500,000 with no more than a 10% to be allocated to Phase 1, the design. And the ratings were based on the total proposal, but only Phase 1 will be awarded until funds are in place for Phase 2, which would be construction. The 3 companies that did bid on it are outlined there, along with the pricing for each phase. Highest rated bidder, Transition Construction Inc. with Scatliff and Miller and Murray, submitted a total price of $474,400, not including GST, with $42,500 allocated for Phase 1. The Parks Committee has been fundraising and currently has sufficient funds in trust with the city to complete phase 1, the design. Further fundraising and/or grant funding confirmation is required to complete phase 2, construction of the project. Transition Construction submitted a schedule with anticipated completion of phase 1 the first week of June 2022. They have proposed to complete construction in September 2022. However, this is dependent on funding being in place, and the second contract award would be required for phase 2. It is the administrative recommendation that the Council of City of Portage la Prairie award the contract for phase 1 design of design build services for a skate park to Transition Construction Inc. for the contract price of $42,500 net of GST, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Draycott, seconded by Councillor Knox. Any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Knox?
Yeah, I just have a question. It's just education for me. So this is a Parks Committee project, and I understand that the city has the money in trust. So I'm just confused as to why we vote on this when it's a Parks Committee project. And so I just need a little bit of education from somebody who knows.
Kathy, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. I think Jocelyn, who's our Director of Operations, who's been quite involved with this, I'm going to ask if she speaks first.
Yes, it was the request of the Parks Committee that the city take on the administration of this contract because we have the expertise for that they don't have. Also, because the park will become, it's on city property and will become the city's responsibility once it is built, that we have a large stake in the matter in that way as well.
Great, thank you. Makes sense now. Thanks.
Any further questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Meyer, did you have a question or? Okay.
Oh, your worship, just scratching my head.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Next item of new business is the award tender for land drainage sewer on Saskatchewan Avenue West. And this is Transportation Committee. Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The issue is to award the contract for the 2021 Saskatchewan Avenue West land drainage sewer renewals and outfalls installations as specified in RFP number 21 OPS 043. The tender for the Saskatchewan Avenue West land drainage sewer renewals and outfall installations closed on December 23rd, 2021. This is the second tender of 3 for the larger rehabilitation project of Saskatchewan Avenue West from 4th Street to Elm Street. 4 tenders were received and pricing points are attached in the chart in your report to council. This tender was prepared by Stantec Consulting and advertised on the city website as well as Merck's. Stantec's opinion of probable cost for this tender was $9,135,259. The tendered amount includes a contingency allowance of $250,000. EF Moon Construction Limited had the lowest price and the highest points value. If the project is awarded to EF Moon Construction, approximately $4,366,489 of the cost would be covered through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, and the City of Portage la Prairie has been approved for debentures that would cover the remaining cost of $1,433,329. The work is scheduled to be started in January and completed in late summer of 2022. It is the administrative recommendation that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie award the contract for 2021 Saskatchewan Avenue West land drainage sewer renewals and outfall installations to EF Moon Construction Limited for the amount of $5,799,808.15 plus GST. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Espy and seconded by Councillor Meyer. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? Yeah, that's carried. Our next item is old business, and this is third reading for water and sewer rates for 2022 to 2025. And this is the Finance Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And as you alluded to, it's just utility rate approvals third reading. And so this is not news to City Council here, but this has been a long process going back to 2019 when an extensive analysis of utility operations was conducted by our consultant, and from that a final recommendation of rate and fee changes was developed. We started this process, received first reading back on September 28th of 2020, and then second reading on January 11th of 2021. And then there was a delay, obviously, as a result of COVID, etc. But here we are, and I'm very happy to move, and it is a recommendation of your committee that Bylaw 20-8710 be read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed, and the city will implement the 2022 to 2025 utility rates and fees on July 1st, 2022.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Espy. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Our last item of old business is the second and third reading of Council Indemnity Bylaw 21-8730, and this is Finance Committee. Councillor Buds.
Thanks again, Your Worship. This is the Council Indemnity Bylaw, which has been discussed as well. And Council Indemnity generally follows any QP contracts. And so as we know, that's just been settled. And so it is proposed that the indemnity payments for members of council be increased by 2% effective Pay 1 for each of the years of 2021, 2022, and 2023. And so we're just looking for approval tonight that Bylaw 21-8730 being a bylaw for the payment of indemnities to members of council for the years 2021 through 2023 be given second reading.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Espy. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
And that Bylaw 21-8730 be read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed, and that Bylaw 19-8685 be rescinded.
Moved by Councillor Buds and seconded by Councillor Espy. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. That concludes our business. So council is adjourned at 7:02 p.m. and we're going to move right into committee. We'll call committee to order at 7:03 p.m. First up is Finance, Legislative Property Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your committee has nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. Next is City Planning and Economic Development Committee. Councillor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing in committee this evening.
Thank you. Community Services Committee. Councillor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. On our committee meeting this evening, we do have a request from the Portage Regional Recreation Authority Board of Directors to amend a bylaw with respect to the maximum length of term allowable for citizen representative. Currently, the term is 4 years, and they are looking to move that to 6 years to be more appropriate to maximize member engagement. So we will be voting on that next council meeting, unless there are any questions or conversation that anybody would like to have about it at this moment. Seeing none, I look forward to bringing that to next council meeting. And other than that, I do just want to also highlight that the Portage la Prairie Community Revitalization Corporation is continuing with their urban Indigenous vaccine clinics. They are hosting a number of clinics through January. They are now on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so the 11th, 18th, 25th, and the 12th, 19th, and 26th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. So please contact the PCRC if you are looking to access that clinic. It is open to everyone, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, and they even have the youth vaccine available. So if you need an appointment, then please give them a call. All of the information is on their social media as well, so that we can get as many vaccines as possible in the community. And that is all I have this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Draycott. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Wall, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, we have no report this evening.
Thank you. And Transportation Committee, Councillor Espy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Transportation Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. And Public Safety Committee, Councillor Knox.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing from your Public Safety Committee this evening.
Thank you. So committee is adjourned at 7:05 p.m. Thank you for coming out, everybody.
Good night.